She's not going to come at you head on. Not at first. She won't wave a knife in your face. She won't scream. She won't threaten to burn your world down. No, that's not how it starts. It starts with a smile, a small delay, a soft disagreement, a sudden change of mind for no reason at all. And then she waits. She watches how you react. That's the first test. And if you fail, there's no blood spilled, no dramatic fight. Just surrender. Because the moment a man hands over his frame, his time, and his judgment just to win a woman's approval, he's already lost. Not just her respect, he's lost authority over himself. Machiavelli once wrote, "He who becomes master of a city accustomed to freedom and does not destroy it, may expect to be destroyed by it." When you hear that line, you start to see why most men lose everything. They don't fail because women are cruel, but because they never dismantle illusions. They try to win women without ever testing loyalty. They try to lead without inspecting the court. They sit on a throne they never defended. And in the end, they're devoured by what they ignored. Here's the truth. Women are not chaotic by nature. They're calculating, not because they enjoy cruelty, but because survival demands it. A woman who can't test a man's strength cannot know if she's safe. That's why from the first conversation, she isn't just listening to your words, she's reading your reasons. She's watching the delay in your response, the cracks in your tone, the way your body shifts when she pushes a boundary. She notices how much you flinch when she's late, how fast you forgive when she breaks a promise, how eagerly you smooth over contradictions. What you call grace or understanding, she often interprets as weakness. And Machiavelli warned, a prince who is not himself shrewd cannot be well counseled. That's where most men collapse. They think their willingness to please earns love. They think self-sacrifice is rewarded with loyalty. But Machiavelli didn't write for men who wanted to be liked. He wrote for men who wanted to rule. And his lesson was blunt. It is safer to be feared than loved, when one of the two must be lacking. Now, this doesn't mean fear in the sense of terror or abuse. It means gravity. It means immovability. A woman might love a man she can manipulate, but she respects the one she can't move. And between love and respect, it's respect that keeps her loyal, not affection. Think of it like a court of power. Every interaction is a referendum on your strength. She shows up late. Do you move your schedule, or do you keep your standard? She mentions her ex. Do you shrink, or do you stay unmoved? She dismisses your ideas. Do you beg for agreement, or do you hold your ground? Every moment is a vote, and she's not the only one watching. The people around you, friends, peers, family, are silently watching your reaction to disobedience. Here's the mistake. Men think this is about games. They think it's seduction, but it's not. It's sovereignty. The man who never tests a woman is like a king who never inspects his borders. He will be invaded, exploited, overthrown, sometimes without ever knowing the first sign of war.
Why? Because he mistook her smile for peace. But Machiavelli warned us, appearances are the enemy of truth. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Women, perhaps more than anyone, are masters of appearing agreeable while testing for strength. She might laugh at your jokes, call you sweet, lean into your touch, and at the same time push your boundaries like a foreign power testing defenses. She will never ask, "Can I control you?" She'll try. And the instant you fold, you've told her the truth. You're not the ruler, you're the ruled. And here's why this happens. You were never taught to test. You were taught to trust. You were told that love is earned with kindness, presence, provision, that a good woman will see the good in you if you just treat her well. But Machiavelli would laugh at that notion. because in every arena where power is at stake, only fools lead with goodness. He said it clearly, a man who wishes to act entirely up to his professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him among so much that is evil. And that's the reality. You weren't born into peace. You were born into evaluation. Even the kindest woman does not love you for your virtue. She loves you for your weight, your ability to resist, to assert, to remain calm in storms. So let's put it plainly. If she cries, do you fold? If she disrespects, do you chase? If she disappears, do you wait like a dog by the door, or carry on like a man whose purpose was never tied to her validation? These are her tests, invisible, silent, built into every interaction. She doesn't need to announce them because instinct tells her what to look for. She's measuring your silence, your tension, your disagreement. She's watching how quickly you negotiate your own standards just to keep her smiling. And every time you do, the smile stays, but the respect vanishes. And that's why so many men lose power without ever hearing the word no. She doesn't have to reject you outright. She just grows colder, less responsive, less affectionate. You don't understand what happened, but what happened is simple. She saw your soft core, and once she's seen it, she can't unsee it.
Machiavelli advised rulers to simulate virtue, but never depend on it fully. He wrote, "It is well to appear merciful, faithful, humane, sincere, religious, and also to be so, but you must be ready to change to the opposite if necessity commands it." That's the part most modern men ignore. We live in a world where softness is praised in words, but never rewarded in reality. Men who reveal vulnerability too soon aren't honored, they're quietly dismissed. And so the principle remains, you must test, not for revenge, not for domination, but for clarity. You need to know, is she with you because you bend or because you don't? Is her loyalty real or is it a performance propped up by your compliance? You won't find that answer in comfort. You'll only find it when you disrupt the script. Tell her no and watch what shakes. Withdraw attention and see what remains. Speak truth and listen for silence. The woman who is steady and grounded won't flinch at your standards. She'll respect them, even when they frustrate her. But the woman who thrives on domination won't tolerate a man she cannot move. And this is where most men fall, not because they lack strength, but because they lack the will to use it. See, most men have trained themselves to please. They've been conditioned to believe resistance equals rejection. But here's the reality. Pleasing guarantees rejection, while resistance reveals character. That's not just a catchy line. It's the truth you can observe in every failed relationship. The Machiavellian man does not argue. He doesn't explain. He observes. He withholds. He tests. Because what collapses under scrutiny was never worth keeping in the first place, and what can't withstand pressure was never real. Understand this, a woman will never sit you down and say, "Here's what I really respect." She won't hand you a checklist. She'll reveal it only through her reactions. She might say she wants a kind man, but then disappear the moment you prioritize her comfort over your convictions. She might swear she values honesty, and then rage when your truth cuts through her fantasy. That's why the test has to be silent, not announced, not debated, executed. Because in silence, instinct speaks louder than words.
Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He didn't write for men who wanted approval. He wrote for men who wanted to rule. And his warnings were clear. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Now apply that principle here. You want to know your worth? Don't just look at yourself. Look at the woman beside you. Not her beauty, not her charm, but her response to resistance. If she's only sweet when you're soft, if she's only close when you're convenient, if she only loves the man who bends, then you're not respected, you're tolerated. Tolerated until something more compelling comes along. That's the cold truth. The test is never about punishment, it's about information. If you demand nothing, she'll show you nothing. If you ignore every red flag, she'll plant more. But the moment you withdraw comfort without explanation, the moment you stand firm on a standard, the moment you say no with calm certainty, her performance ends, her essence begins. Now the question is, will she adapt or will she accuse? Will she lean in or fall silent? Will she bring value or remind you of what you owe her? Her reaction is your report card. And here's what Machiavelli taught. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. It's not the role of boyfriend, husband, or leader that makes you worthy of respect. It's how you uphold that role under pressure. That's the real exam. And look around. Strength like that is rare. Most men fold at the first sign of emotional discomfort. They mistake tears for truth. They confuse chaos with passion. They excuse manipulation in the name of love. And in doing so, they lose everything.
Machiavelli had a warning for them too. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. What does that mean in your life? It means she promised to love you when she thought you were a man of strength. But when she saw you yield to her moods, accommodate her manipulations, and center your purpose around keeping her calm, she broke that promise. And she was right to, because you broke the illusion of strength. Still, most men don't see it. They double down on validation. They tell themselves, she's just going through something. They step into the role of emotional caregiver, therapist, servant, and then they call it masculinity. But the Machiavellian man doesn't comfort dysfunction. He filters it, coldly, quietly, without trying to redeem what's already shown its form. She doesn't need more affection. She needs a mirror. And if you're worthy, you become that mirror. Still, unshaken, demanding nothing but truth, and walking away from anything less. And don't be naive, her silence isn't surrender. When you start testing her, she won't explode right away. She'll watch. She'll recalibrate. She might even grow sweeter, just to see if your sudden strength is a phase, a trick, or your true nature. Because the moment you set a boundary, you've declared war on the version of her that was winning. And now she has a choice: evolve or escalate. If she escalates, with guilt, coldness, drama, withdrawal, you cannot move. This is where most men lose everything. They test once, meet resistance, and then retreat. They think discomfort is a signal to compromise. But Machiavelli warned, injuries must be inflicted all at once, so that their ill savor may be less. Meaning, if you're going to assert control, you must do it fully, immediately, without hesitation. Not 1 week on, 1 week off. Inconsistency invites chaos, and chaos is her natural battlefield.
Understand this: her resistance to your boundaries is not the problem. Her reaction to your consistency is the truth. Any woman can keep calm for a few days, but what happens after the 3rd time you say no? After the 5th time you don't fold? After the 10th time you ignore the theatrics and stay grounded? That's when her real character comes out. Most women will flinch, some will flee, a rare few will adapt. Those are the ones worth your attention, but even then, you don't rush. You don't hand over trust. You observe slowly, carefully, watching for patterns. This is what I call the Machiavellian frame. Machiavelli said, "A wise man ought always to follow the paths beaten by great men and imitate those who have been supreme. You don't reinvent the wheel,
You don't make loud declarations. You refine the art of testing. You enforce standards quietly, and you never make exceptions just because she looks good, or because you're lonely, or because she promises things in the moment. Because the test isn't just about her, it's about you. Can you live without affection long enough to see the truth? Can you sit through the discomfort of cold nights, of unanswered messages, of temporary distance? Can you endure without routine comfort, without her approval, without intimacy, long enough to see who she really is without the mask? Most men can't. They say they want clarity, but fold at the first night of silence. They say they want a queen, but kneel to anyone who offers attention. But Machiavelli warned us clearly, men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. So ask yourself, is your relationship driven by your fear of losing her or by your love of truth? Because if it's fear, you're not leading, you're submitting. And you can't protect a woman you're afraid to upset. You can't lead a woman you depend on for purpose. And you can't test a woman whose reaction matters more to you than your own sanity.
So start small. Cancel a plan. Say no. Remain quiet when she fishes for a reaction. Let her sit with her emotions without rushing to rescue her. And then you watch, not with hope, not with desperation, but with detachment. Not to punish, but to understand. This is the way of the prince, not because it's cruel, but because it's the only way to rule without being ruled. The woman you cannot test is the woman who will dismantle you, not with shouting, not with violence, but with smiles, with intimacy, with 1,000 little permissions you gave without realizing you were surrendering. One skipped confrontation, one ignored boundary, one apology you didn't owe. That's all it takes. And then, by the time you realize it, she never had to take your spine. You gave it to her. You traded it for attention and called it intimacy. But let's flip this around. A woman who passes your tests is different. She won't flatter you excessively. She won't worship you. She'll simply hold her shape. When you push, she doesn't crumble. Not because she fears you, but because she respects the man who doesn't flinch. And that's the rare woman. She can't be found unless you filter with discipline and endure with silence. Because here's the danger. Everything that feels good in the beginning can be a trap. The compliments, the affection, the way she seems to get you. Machiavelli wrote, "The vulgar crowd is always taken by appearances, and the world consists chiefly of the vulgar." That's the tragedy of modern men. They see appearances, they assume, they invest, and by the time they realize they've been chosen for their weakness instead of their strength, it's already too late. And make no mistake, you don't pay the price because you picked the wrong woman. You pay because you refused to test. You avoided clarity because you feared losing comfort.
So now the choice is yours. You can click away from this video and go back to pretending that love is pure, that effort is enough, that boundaries are harsh, and women are innocent. Or you can start. Start by testing her silence, her anger, her gratitude, her consistency, her reaction to the word no. Because here's the principle: any woman who cannot withstand scrutiny does not deserve your investment, and any man who refuses to test is already lost. If these words hit you somewhere deep, if you felt something you didn't want to admit, then share this, pass it on, not because it makes you popular, but because every time another man wakes up before it's too late, the kingdom gets stronger. And maybe that's the most Machiavellian move of all, awakening the men around you before the invaders arrive. So remember this: the woman you cannot test is the woman who will strip you of your power. But the woman who can endure your standards, who respects your gravity, who doesn't flinch at your no, that's the woman worth standing beside. Everything else? It's illusion. Now test everything and trust no mask.